I'm Poppy Harlow in New York. Hope you had a great weekend. We have a lot to get to this morning. A private firing gets even more public. A new recording from ex-White House aide and reality TV star Omarosa Newman. This one of the President of the United States. A conversation she had with him, and we're hearing it on tape for the first time this morning. She claims it was recorded one day after Chief of Staff John Kelly ousted her. Listen to this.
Omarosa, what's going on? I just saw on the news that you're thinking about leaving. What happened?
General Kelly came to me and said that you guys wanted me to leave.
No, nobody even told me about it. Nobody.
Wow.
You know, they run a big operation, but I didn't know it. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
God damn it. I don't love you leaving at all.
Newman has already released a recording of the conversation that she had with General Kelly, at least part of the conversation in the Situation Room. That, when it came out over the weekend, sparked all sorts of questions, raised national security concerns, and raised a lot more credibility questions. Let's go to our Boris Sanchez, who joins us with more. Boris, covering the White House, knowing the background between sort of her tenure while she was serving in the White House, the controversy that swirled after she left. Walk us through what we're learning this morning.
Hey, good morning, Poppy. Yeah, this newly released audio from Omarosa indicates that the president told her that he wasn't aware that she was fired by John Kelly. Omarosa now says that she did not believe the president when he told her that in subsequent conversations, he ended up admitting that he delegated that task, that he directed John Kelly ultimately to dismiss her, though she still maintains that she believes that President Trump wasn't fully aware of everything that was happening in the White House at that time. Here's more from Omarosa on NBC this morning. Listen.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Glad to be back here at the Today Show.
Nice to see you. I should let you know I am recording this conversation.
Oh, very good. What a coincidence.
Yes, you brought us a new tape. The president, the day after you were fired, we just heard it. He says he didn't know about it. He doesn't like you leaving the White House. Is he lying in that tape?
I'm not certain, but what's most concerning, one, why was I locked in the Situation Room for almost 2 hours? Why was I not allowed to leave? I'll get to the second part.
Yeah.
And lastly, when I asked to leave, and I asked for counsel, and I asked for my husband, why was I denied at least 4 times? When I spoke to him, and he said he had no idea, that should be alarming to any American, that the President of the United States does not know what's happening with an assistant to the President who's known him for 15 years.
Okay, but just to, I mean, you brought the tape.
Absolutely.
Now, there are very serious and startling questions about that recording made in the Situation Room. Namely, was it legal? But there are also questions about why John Kelly felt it was necessary to take Omarosa into the Situation Room to fire her to begin with. Let's play some of that sound now of the conversation between the Chief of Staff and the former Trump aide in the Situation Room at the White House.
I'm only going to stay for a couple of minutes. These are lawyers. We've got to talk to you about leaving the White House. It's come to my attention over the last few months that there's been some pretty, in my opinion, significant integrity issues related to you and use of government vehicles and some other issues. They'll walk you through the legal aspects of this, but there is some. From my view, there's some money issues and other things, but from my view, the integrity issues are very serious.
Now, Poppy, I've asked the White House about those integrity issues, if they could clarify what John Kelly was talking about. They have yet to respond. In a separate statement, Sarah Sanders suggested that this recording is a serious security breach, and Hogan Gidley, Deputy Press Secretary, was just on Fox News saying that Omarosa is a disgruntled former employee who's now peddling self-serving lies. Poppy.
Okay, Boris Sanchez, thank you for walking through all of that. With me now, CNN political commentator Errol Lewis, CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, and CNN counterterrorism analyst, former CIA counterterrorism official Phil Mudd. So, Jeffrey...
Can I ask you a question first? How crazy are all these people? What is going on? Goodness.
There you go.
God.
Who wants to answer Jeffrey's question this morning? No, on the legal fronts here. Okay, first of all, Did she break the law? I mean, I get DC's one-party consent. This is the Situation Room. There are national security questions.
Clearly, she committed a firing offense while being fired, so I don't think it counts. I don't think this is a legal issue. I think this is an insight into the administration and the kind of people who work there and how they treat each other, which is bonkers.
Walter Schaub, obviously the former ethics czar, said on CNN, there's some irony, Errol. There's some irony that she's being told she's being fired for misconduct while she is committing misconduct.
Yes, there's a certain kind of comedic aspect to it for sure. One thing I would say, though, is that this is not without precedent. We haven't seen this in a long time, but if you go back far enough, you'll find that the reason Richard Nixon was wiretapping and taping all of his conversations with everybody was he then, as we've now heard from Omarosa, had a White House where people were going to point the blame. They were going to mischaracterize conversations. At least that's what Nixon thought. And he wanted to make sure that decisions that they arrived at, that people were on the record saying that's why he did that. That mentality, that paranoid mentality, appears to have carried over into the Trump administration. It seems to be alive and at play where people don't trust each other to the point where they're making recordings.
Philmont, Sarah Sanders says this is a national security concern. Also, the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, echoed that this morning. Let's listen to him.
She's certainly violating national security regulations, which I think have the force of law. Yeah, I would think she is. I mean, I have to look at it more carefully. And is she violating every bit of trust and that people should have in someone? I mean, Donald Trump made her. I mean, what kind of ingratitude is this?
Okay, aside from who made whom here, the question about national security, is it a national security concern? You're supposed to put all your devices in these lockers outside of the Situation Room before you go in. That applies to everyone. Clearly, she had a phone or a recording device. She wouldn't actually answer Savannah's question this morning when she said, what did you record on? Is there a national security concern here?
I don't think there is. Look, I remember walking into the Situation Room. My recollection, as you just said, is you have lockers there. You're supposed to put your phone in there. Look, there are questions, and General Kelly raised these in the tape we heard that Omarosa recorded of her firing about integrity that I suspect went back months. I doubt she had significant access to national security issues. She clearly was regarded in the White House as someone who wasn't trustworthy. I think the great irony here is someone, I think it was Arrow who was mentioning this, is she seems to think that this is a good idea to release that it buttresses her case. The irony is she's being fired for integrity while she violates regulations in taping the conversation about integrity. Unbelievable.
So to that point, Errol Lewis, I mean, is there, I mean, and you saw Preet Bharara also tweet and sort of make that point. Is it possible, given what he noted, what Phil noted, that this just sort of falls flat then? And people just say she's not credible, she doesn't have, integrity, look at what she did in this recording in the Situation Room, we don't buy it.
Well,
or
she may not have integrity, but that doesn't mean that the tapes themselves, the recordings themselves, are inaccurate or even revelatory. There could be some really interesting stuff that she's recorded. If, as we've heard reported from Josh Dawsey, that there might be dozens or even hundreds of recordings, you don't know what you're going to catch. And the date in particular could get really, really interesting.
And this is an interesting parallel to what went on in 2016 with WikiLeaks. We know that it was illegal, not just improper, for someone to hack John Podesta's emails, to hack the DNC emails. There was unethical behavior in the creation of these emails. But once they were out there, we all started to look at the substance. If Omarosa has tapes where people are saying interesting, newsworthy things, we are going to focus on what they say rather than her ethics in collecting them.
Another legal question for you. In this interview just a few minutes ago on the Today Show this morning, Omarosa claimed false imprisonment, okay? Let me read you the sentence. Yes. Quote, "The moment I said I would like to leave and they said I can't go, it became false imprisonment." She's talking about her firing in this situation. She was in there with General Kelly, with some lawyers.
That's ridiculous. I mean, when you get fired, they sometimes tell you, gather your things and leave the building. You are physically under the control of the people who employ you. That is especially true at the White House, where there are, of course, enormous national security concerns. So the idea that there is some tort against her in the physical act of her firing, I think, is absurd.
Let me ask you about the non-disclosure agreement here, Phil Mudd, that has been reported on. We saw the text of it on Meet the Press yesterday, and Omarosa claimed on Meet the Press that some employees, like Sean Spicer, she alleges, we don't know, she alleges were offered hush money to sign these non-disclosure